Hi everyone, making a response video to Gratex.
So, Director, I'm going to cut right to the chase. You are biased. You are a biased person participating in tribal wars, what humans do. It's a psychological function of us.
Yes, Gratex, I absolutely agree with you that tribal warfare is a function of human psychology, or rather a manifestation of our nature revealed through our behaviour in terms of conflicting with other people and wanting to kill them in wars. You know, our history books are absolutely strewn with a long history of war and bloody warfare, and I see no possible solution to this. Abandon ship. I have no faith whatsoever in humanity.
You have identified with a group of people and you're trying to increase the status of that group of people in order to increase your own status as part of that identity. And you do this by demonizing what you consider to be the opposite side of some kind of polar, diametrically opposed position from yours, i.e. the good side versus the bad side, good versus evil.
Well, Gratex, first and foremost, I identified with the philosophy of antinatalism. I mean, from a very early age, I felt daunted and bewildered and disorientated by the fact of my existence on this planet. You know, even when I was a young child, I remember when I went to London for the first time, I was about 7 or 8 years of age, and I saw this homeless man, and he had this tray, and he was on the side of the road, and he had these little jumping beans or something, and he was moving and shaking them around, you know, trying to sell them on the street. And I looked into his face, and I saw just such sorrow and sadness, and it moved me. And after our trip to London, I was looking forward to going home and watching a Daleks film, you know, Doctor Who, and I was excited about it. But at the back of my mind, the memory of that man and his sad eyes, it tempered my excitement of watching Doctor Who, you know. And as I grew up and grew older, you know, I could sense a disjunction between the way that society functions and the memes that are out there and are commonly accepted by people, you know, as a reality, and the cold, harsh contingencies on which our existence here is underpinned. You know, so there's a disjunction. So I was always searching for answers, and I read a lot of science books. I was interested in evolution, in cosmology, in psychology, and I read my Sharon, I read my Schopenhauer, yeah, I read my David Benatar, I read my David Hume, I read my Bertrand Russell, and the antinatalism, the pessimistic perspectives that were expressed in these philosophies really resonated with me on a deep level, you know. And I've been seeking to express these thoughts and feelings that I have, you know, and I feel that antinatalism is something that needs to be promoted. We need to increase awareness of it, you know. I mean, there's not even a token gesture of the idea that creating sentient life might be a little bit morally problematic, you know, in popular culture. And I strongly feel that this is something that needs to be addressed, you know. And yes, I admit that I derive some ego gratification from being part of a group, you know, the antinatalism group, you know, and it makes me feel good about myself because I can see that I'm identifying with a worthwhile cause, you know. I feel that when I make my videos and exchange messages and comments with fellow antinatalists, that I'm able to speak in a very authentic, non-feigned manner about what I think and what I feel, you know. And in general life, you can't do that, you know. You have to live a lie, or otherwise you would be completely ostracized by society. And in terms of the good and bad dichotomy here, I see a negative value to life. It's the sentience that is a burden. You know, it's like this glass. This glass is constituted by atoms, and there's no sentience manifested by the configuration of the atoms that make up this pint glass. You know, and there's nothing here that's being deprived of any pleasure or happiness or joy or satisfaction or hedonistic pleasures. You know, it's just, in a sense, it's dormant energy. There's no pining, there's no state of deprivation. You know, it's sentience that contrives and manufactures this deprivational state. And people, they just constantly seek throughout their life to satisfy this gratification, this deprivation. But you know, the glass, it just is. It doesn't have any value judgments. It doesn't have any subjective values, you know, and it's not being deprived of anything, and it's not experiencing any pain, suffering, or death, you know. And everybody on this planet experiences at least some measure of pain and suffering during their life, and then of course they're dead at the end of it, you know. And dying is often a very traumatizing and painful and bewildering experience. And I find it repugnant that people are just so blind and caught up in their own egos that they just give a green light to this idea of whimsically creating sentient life for their own selfish gratification. And that's what it is. It's the selfish gene. You know, we know the basics of evolution. We're just, you know, dotting the I's and crossing the T's, but we know the basic mechanism of this whole thing, you know. And, you know, people, they're selfishly creating sentient life for their own gratification and edification, and then they're passing it off as bestowing a gift of the precious gift of life onto their children. And it's just madness. It's insanity, you know. So in that regard, there are two sides here, and I regard the good side, the side that is being honest and being rational and being objective about the fact that this pint glass is not being deprived of happiness, and it's not experiencing pain, suffering, or death. So why do human beings regard themselves as having a capacity of sentience? Why do they regard this capacity as being superior to a pint glass? You know, so there are two conflicting sides here. I want people to be honest and to be authentic, and to not pretend that life is a gift, you know. And the only reason the main reason why they present the life as a gift is that they can justify creating sentient life when it's not in the child's interest they create to bring that child into life. So yes, there is a conflict here, and I make no bones about presenting my arguments and arguing against people who think that procreation should just get the green light, you know, just because it's nature.
You're playing this little fantastical game just for the sake of your own, but have convinced yourself over years of fighting with your ego, fighting with yourself, that you're doing it for the greater good to save all sentience from suffering and so on and so forth.
Well, this is a straw man. I mean, can you find anywhere where I've expressed optimism that the human race will ever, completely, voluntarily discontinue? That's not the way natural selection works. It's not the way nature works, and human beings are a manifestation of nature. This is a common misconception that mankind is divorced from nature, but this is just egoism. We are a part of nature. So therefore, due to evolution and natural or artificial selection, because artificial selection, if it occurs, well, it has started to occur in some ways. That actual process is informed by the original conditions of the evolution by natural selection, so it's just an outgrowth of that. So I see insanity, i.e. the view that non-existent people want to come into existence, so therefore by creating sentient life you're bestowing a gift, is a form of mental illness that confers an evolutionary advantage. And of course human beings are primarily irrational, emotionally driven animals, so I don't see all human beings voluntarily discontinuing, and I've never expressed such an optimistic view in terms of how far antinatalism can get. So you're creating a straw man there in order to make my ambitions and hopes and dreams for antinatalism seem completely at odds with a realistic appraisal of the state of affairs as they rest in 2011 AD. Having said all that, I do see value in antinatalism in terms of persuading the people who do have a capacity to see through the DNA game and see that that sentience is a contrivance by nature that serves an evolutionary function, and that's all it ever does. People who can appreciate that, people who can come to terms with looking the human condition squarely in the face, people of that ilk, they can be persuaded to refrain from procreation. So however many people are persuaded by my arguments or my videos, that's, as I see it, that is future pain, suffering and death that has been negated as a result of my endeavours. And I find it gratifying on a personal level that I can make a positive impact on the way people currently regard this life sentience business, in 2011. So I've got very humble and realistic a conception of what I can and cannot achieve with my antinatalist videos. So you're building up a straw man there, and you're questioning my motivations for making my videos. And yes, I put my hand up. There is a measure of ego involved in making my videos. I derive enjoyment from communicating with fellow antinatalists. I enjoy the intellectual challenge of debating and sharpening my debating skills and broadening my understanding of human psychology, but also there's a motivation for me here that is altruistic, that is at the forefront of my mind, as well as the ego gratification, that I am making a small contribution to presenting and promoting a philosophy that I strongly believe in. So this is just a character assassination about my true motivations. And even if my motivations were completely as you portrayed them, that would not detract one iota, from the truth value of the philosophy that I'm advocating. Regardless of my actual motivations, it's either correct or incorrect that this baseball cap wants to come into existence, it's either true or not true that this baseball cap is not experiencing any pain, suffering or death. So there you have it.
What I'm arguing is that you believe what you believe because it's the moral strongest position. It's not that you just happen to believe in the strongest moral position. You believe it because of the strength of the position, because of the strength that it gives you and the authority that it gives you. And that's why you're also an objectivist, because objectivists want to believe that your beliefs are not perspectives but are truth. They want to claim that their perspective is truth, and that anybody who disagrees with them must be somehow dysfunctional, delusional, or dishonest, just for having a different perspective on reality from themselves.
I don't have any authority here. I'm just making YouTube videos presenting and advocating antinatalism arguments. Now, people are fully entitled to give my videos a wide berth. I'm not putting a gun to anyone's head and demanding that they watch my videos. You know, the antinatalist arguments as I see them, they're rock solid. You know, you like to always talk about this objective and subjective thing. Well, I regard it as an objective fact that there is no sentient experiences of deprivation of happiness or any experiences of pain, suffering or dying being experienced on the planet Mars as we speak. Now, if you think that's a subjective or an objective argument, then I don't know what to say to you. You know, you always talk about this subjective and objective thing. You know, science is about being as objective as possible. I mean, essentially, science attempts to describe things by filtering out subjective experiences and evaluations and value judgments of a phenomenon. Now, if you take that to its full extreme, you're erasing sentience from the equation, because as long as you have a subjective sentient experience commenting on reality, then it is inherently a subjective viewpoint. But if there are no sentient beings, all that remains is an objective state of affairs outside of human or sentient perception.
Taking about it is that you claim to be objective, but you're very biased. For example, in the comments in my video, you chastise me for uncalled for behaviour towards Watson Rudder and that I'm belittling him. Meanwhile, you completely ignored the fact that Watson Rudder said that I was worse than Eichmann. You have playing on my physical size and shape. He's also insulted that.
Well, I don't even know who Eichmann is, to be honest, and if he had a jibe at your weight, I apologise if I can't be overcome with a great amount of sympathy for you, given that you've described me as lazy, stupid and boring in the past, despite no provocation from my part.
I have not chastised him for his uncalled for behaviour. In fact, you've gone out of your way to excuse his behaviour as entirely rational or poetic and enigmatic.
I said he has a captivating voice, you know, and that's true, and he's a charismatic fellow. I said in the comment that I wish he'd speak more plainly, because it's like trying to decipher a riddle or something when he speaks.
Well, you've completely ignored all the positive points that I've made whilst focusing on the worst of what I have ever said. This is clearly indicative of somebody who's caught up in some sort of tribal war. You can see no bad in people you consider to be your side, and you can see all bad in people you consider to be on the opposite side. Well,
I don't think that's true at all. You know, I've called up other antinatalists before. I wouldn't say I've chastised them, but I've just indicated that perhaps they should tone down their language a little bit, because I don't think it's very conducive to antinatalism if antinatalists are using coarse language to describe their opponents. So I've expressed views towards other antinatalists, some antinatalists, that they should perhaps reconsider the way they talk about their opponents. So I can criticise other antinatalists. That's it.